on December 7th, early in the morning, I got a message from somebody I have known for more than a year. And he lives in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, in the refugee camp where Rohingya people live. And the message was an urgent message asking for help. It said that my sister and her 5-year-old daughter are on a boat which is stranded. The boat is in Indian Ocean, and there are 160 Rohingya refugees on the boat. Ma'am, can you do something to help? Can you call the Indian authorities? I know that something like this happens pretty often. And I know that because in April of last year, April 2021, I had covered a similar story of a boat which was lost and then found in the Indian Ocean. And then like the whole interaction between that boat and the Indian Ocean to kind of rescue those people. So I was aware of the situation and how to deal with this. So what I immediately did was, after getting that urgent message for help on December 7th, I immediately called a journalist friend of mine who lives in Andaman. And I asked him for the contact number of the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center in Andaman. So the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center is the authority which actually sends out rescue efforts in the sea when any kind of boat or any kind of other ship or vessel needs help. He gave my number to them, and an official from MRCC, or the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, called me back and said, ma'am, we have heard that you've asked for help. And so I immediately gave them the entire details that about 160 to 180 Rohingya refugees are stranded in the Indian Ocean. They say that they are in Andaman Sea, which is in the Indian waters, because they are getting on their satellite phone. It says Andaman, so they know that they're in India. I gave them the immediate coordinates of where the boat was last. And I also said that, please, if you can go and find them. I have heard that people are in urgent need of food and water. If you can go and find them, and if you can give them food and drinking water supply, because when a boat is overcrowded, as these boats usually are, because they want to take more and more people and they want to take them to countries like Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia, they don't have enough food supply because they want to pack the boat with more number of people. So I knew that if the boat has been stranded for more number of days that they had estimated, they are definitely short of food, and they probably don't even have drinking water. So my urgent appeal to the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, not as a journalist, also not as an activist, but just as a citizen, a global citizen, was that, can you please immediately send food and water to this boat, which has a lot of women and a lot of children? They took the coordinates. They said, okay, we're going to do something about it. Soon after that, I called the boat. The satellite number of the boat was working until then. In the last few days, it's become difficult to contact them. But soon after that, I called the boat. This is all on December 7th. I called the boat, and somebody called Hussein answered the satellite phone. And I said, I introduced myself and I said that I'm a journalist and I'm calling from India, and I heard that there has been a situation like this. What do you need? And he was exasperated in a sense, and he was like, we need help, we need help, we need help. That's what he said. And I said, how many people okay? And he said, 8 people have died, 2 people are children. And I couldn't basically converse more with him because the phone got disconnected. But that bit of information was not just crucial, but also heartbreaking, that on December 7th, we know that 8 people had then, according to the boatman on the boat, 8 people had died, and of them 2 were children. I called the MRCC again. That is the Maritime Rescue Authority. And I told them this information, and I said, can you please send the help? I have to say that most officials don't want to comment and they don't want to talk. The MRCC authority was always answering my call and taking the latest coordinates and saying that we will send rescue or we will send some kind of help or support. If they did that or if they didn't do that they would not comment on. Hours passed, and obviously the family members were getting restless, and I was getting restless. About 8 to 9 hours later, when I called MRCC again and I asked them, have you found the boat? And they said, we cannot reveal operational data. And at that point, really, I got really, just as a person again, I got really frustrated. I was like, there are people on the boat who are looking to survive. They need food, they need water. Forget about fixing the engine, forget about like disembarking them. All of that can come later. It should come, but all of that can come later. But at least give those children, give those men and women food and water to survive, so that they don't die out of starvation, so that they don't have to drink seawater. And I didn't think that I would write an 800-word piece at that point. I didn't even think that I would like send this story out to a media outlet. I wanted to kind of see if I could do anything that could get attention to this immediately. And so my instant response was to put out a tweet. And to put out a tweet showing the condition of the people, the fact that they had been stuck in water in the seas, and that the Indian authorities had been intimidated, had been informed. It had been hours since the Indian authorities had been informed, and they were not ready to comment on anything. And we didn't even know that any support had been sent to them. And that was my appeal out on Twitter, saying that this boat and the people on this boat need help. I had no expectations that people are going to look at it or people are going to take it into account. But I was hopeful that people would. And I'm glad that they did. And a lot of media attention came to the boat after that. A lot of people started reporting about the fact that this boat has been stuck. But as much as reporting about an issue makes a difference, we also need the authorities to act. We need the governments of the countries or the coast guards of the countries where these boats are stuck to act. And in the days that passed since December 7th, we did not see that happening from any of the governments, be it the Indian government or the Indian Coast Guard, the Indonesian Coast Guard or Indonesian government, Malaysia or Thailand. According to information that has been gathered by me and by some others since December 7th, when the first contact was made, or first appeal for help was made, the boat moved from Thai waters to Indian waters. From Indian waters, some sources say that it was towed by the Indian authorities into the Indonesian waters. Let me just repeat that. Some sources, which are the family members of people on the boat, say that the boat was towed out of Indian waters by Indian authorities into the Indonesian water. This probably happened because they didn't want to disembark the people. This also probably happened because the Indian authorities didn't want to take responsibility. And probably also because if the refugees were disembarked in India, they would immediately go into detention center. But all of that to say that none of the governments or none of the authorities wanted to take responsibility. We kept receiving voice messages from the boat through family members saying that they are desperate for help, that people are jumping off the boat. And just then yesterday, last night, we got some information which said that not the authorities, but some local Indonesians have kind of approached this boat, which was ultimately last night in the Indonesian water, but the Indonesian Coast Guard was also not helping, and tried to assist them. So they have moved them from the boat that they were in which the engine has failed, to another boat. That doesn't mean that they have been completely rescued. It means that they have been found, that some local people have reached out to them for help. It doesn't mean that any authority or any government has assisted them. It also doesn't mean that these people are currently on land. It means that these people are still stranded in the sea. They have probably access to food and water thanks to the local Indonesians, but they still need to get out of the water. They still need to get out of the boats they are in and, just move on to do the things that they want to do. And I think this pretty much highlights the larger point of the entire last 2 to 3 weeks. That this is a community, that the Rohingya people are a community, a persecuted community that no country really wants. Myanmar doesn't want them. They fled from Myanmar. In the refugee camps that Bangladesh has provided, they have provided a lot of assistance, but the conditions are really bad. And they're now being threatened, like they have the fear of moving to an island called Bhasan Char. That is why they take these risky journeys. Indonesia doesn't want them. Malaysia doesn't want them. Thailand doesn't want them. India doesn't want them. in terms of a global responsibility, I don't know. The US just opened up its resettlement programs just recently, a few weeks ago, to resettle Rohingya refugees. But those numbers are very small. We have more than 1 million population of Rohingya in Bangladesh. The US is not doing much about it. The European countries are not taking them into resettlement programs, not that I know of. And definitely countries like India, which is not even a signatory of the Refugee Convention, doesn't want them, because when they come here, we just label them as illegal immigrants, and put them into detention centers or put them at risk of deportation. So I think that's the larger point, that here are people, here are human beings, women, children, men, children who are probably even born as refugees. They don't have any other identity but being born as a refugee or as an illegal immigrant. And nobody wants to provide them the basic necessities or the basic dignity that every human deserves. And I hope this entire episode of the last few weeks has been a reminder to the global community and the international community that looks into refugee policy, immigration policy, asylum seeker policy, that this is a population that we really need to awaken to, and to make sure that we do something about the resettlement process. While the international attention has been on this one particular boat, which has about 160 to 180 Rohingya refugees, there was another tragic incident that happened alongside. And these are unconfirmed sources, but this is something that more than one or two sources, this is more than actually 2 or 3 sources have shared with me. There were 4 to 5 boats that left in the last week of November from Cox's Bazar. One of the boats, as we know, was rescued by the Sri Lankan authorities. One was taken in by the Vietnamese Coast Guard and sent back to Myanmar. So the people are probably in detention in Myanmar. We don't know. The other 2 boats were missing. One of these boats is the boat which had the attention of the international media, the 160 or the 180 refugees, which is now in the Indonesian water. But the fourth or the fifth boat, we don't know whether it was 4 or 5, but that boat has been missing, has been off the radar for the last 2 weeks. That boat also had the maximum number of refugees on it, anywhere close to 200 or even above 200. And what we have been told is that because people have lost contact with that boat for the last 2 weeks, and we have the boatsman of the boat that was rescued by Sri Lankan authorities, he says that he and the other people on the boat saw the boat sink right in front of them. And they couldn't do anything because they themselves had more number of people on their boat. So they couldn't rescue the other boat and bring them on into their boat because everybody would have drowned then. My whole point of raising this is that, one, obviously the fact that lives have been lost. Women have died, children, there were families traveling on that boat, families of 4, 5, 6. I just saw a little picture of a boy who was traveling with his father, mother, and sister, and the entire family perished, and it broke my heart. But the fact is that we are purposefully or deliberately not looking at the fact that families, human beings, are taking these journeys and dying in the sea. And we're not doing anything to address the conditions or the reasons why they are making these journeys. And I think that's something that we really need to talk about.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.